Good evening. I call to order the Lake Havasu City Regular Council meeting on Tuesday, August 27th, 2019 at 6 p.m. I will now have an invocation by Pastor John Mackey of Christian Missionary Alliance Church.
Yes.
Welcome.
Shall we pray? Our Heavenly Father, blessed be the name of our God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is the creator of all things, who has made all things, including Lake Havasu City. And we come humbly before you this evening to ask your wisdom and guidance upon this meeting and the direction that are here. I thank you, Lord, for each one of that has been elected and have been appointed or hired for their position in this city. May you give them great wisdom and guidance that things may go well. We pray for those who are serving within the fire department and in the police department. Lord, bless them. We want you to resist the evil, and so we may enjoy the blessings and goodness that you have provided us here. We thank you, Lord, that you're the author of all the absolutes and truth in our laws, patterned after that those absolutes. And so we pray that your blessing especially be upon this meeting, and may you bless this city and all that is in it, and that we may enjoy your great creation and all that's in it. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance from the Havasu Community Health Foundation, #YouMatter.
Please join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And if you'd like to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your organization.
Good evening. I'm Doug Paling, and this is Scott Armbruster, and we're both with the YouMatter group. We are a suicide awareness and prevention group in town. Our mission is to raise awareness in our community and to provide supports and interventions to those who are considering suicide and those who have lost someone to suicide. 2 weeks ago, we brought Kevin Hines here. I see quite a few faces that were there. He had a very powerful yet simple message. Just ask, are you okay? Is there something I can do to help? And that's kind of what we're trying to do with our organization. We are under the Havasu Community Health Foundation. We have a walk coming up September 14th. We're raising money so that we can continue to provide supports. Scott is one of our peer-to-peer counselors, and I'd like him to say a couple words.
Hi everybody, I'm Scott Armbruster, and I'm the peer-to-peer counselor here in Havasu. I'm a survivor of suicide loss myself, and our primary goal is, when I set out to do this stuff about 5.5 years ago, was to help others and as many people as we can, get them the help that they deserve. And hopefully we can do that in our community. There's an epidemic here where I think we're on number 12 this year. Hopefully we can bring that number down. Last year we had 24. So let's leave it right where it's at for now, and let's try to help as many people as we can. If you need some help, have them call us or through the foundation. Some of you have my business card. If any of you need it, just let me know. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you for what you do for our community. And thank you for being here. We'll now have the roll call. The city clerk would like to call the roll.
Council members Cal Sheehy.
Here.
David Lane.
Here.
Jenny Koch. Here. Gordon Grote.
Here.
Michelle Lynn.
Here.
Donna McCoy.
Here.
Jim Dolan.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is our call to the public. This is the opportunity where citizens have the opportunity to address the City Council on matters within the jurisdiction of Lake Havasu City. You have 3 minutes to speak. It can't be a two-way conversation, so if you're here for an item that happens to be on the agenda, we recommend you wait until that time. You also don't have to sign up, but you can, and we did have a couple of folks sign up, so we'll go in order that they signed up first, and then anyone else that would like to address council can do so. So first we have Joyce T. Airy, if you'd like to make your way to the podium.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council members. Approximately 17 years ago, my husband and I bought a corner lot piece of property to build our retirement home on. We built our retirement home on Park Terrace Avenue. We've lived there for approximately 15 to 16 years. Now, across the street from us, we have a vacation rental, i.e. mini hotel. This started 3 weekends ago. There has been 16 to 20 people and numerous children each weekend. There is a swimming pool there. The kids are in the swimming pool late at night, laughing, screaming, etc. Kids will be kids, they're having fun. In the driveway, as many as 8 to 10 cars are parked, plus 3 pickup trucks with large boats. 1 truck and boat parked the wrong way on the street in front of the neighbor's house, blocking the mailbox. Some trucks and boats arrive as late as 2 a.m. in the morning. Then there's the greeting with the people that have already arrived at the house. Starting boat engines, vroom, 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 tuning them up, and then unloading the trucks and slamming the doors, opening the doors, unloading more, slamming the doors. People in front of the house at that time of night, drinking, arguing, tossing about the F word, while the children are running about. It's $1,400 plus for a weekend, for 2 days. We've called the police. The police say there's nothing they can do about it. They sympathize with us and understand. We were told these people can even park in front of our house. We maintain our property. I don't want these vehicles parking in front of our house, messing up the gravel, brushing it out on the street. This is a residential neighborhood, not a mini hotel neighborhood. This is our retirement home, as it is for many others in the neighborhood. Residential, not mini hotel. I dread Labor Day weekend. I would like to see this issue put on your agenda.
You can wrap up. Yeah.
Okay. What about health department issues, bacteria, germs, disease, safety issues in these mini hotels? What's going to happen? What about the zoning? I thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Good news is the governor signed a bill this last legislative session that just went into effect yesterday that will allow the city council to address it in some manner, and city staff's working on that. It's very limited, and we still have a lot of work to do, but we'll talk with neighbors as we're developing that. So we'll stay in touch. Yeah, don't get too excited because they didn't give us that much ability, but they gave us a little bit, and we'll take advantage of it and keep working towards it. Thank you. Next person that signed up to speak is Lisa Kruger from the Chamber of Commerce.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and City staff. I'm here again this evening to introduce you to some of our newest chamber members. So we have 3, I believe, that are here with us this evening, if you guys want to stand up. First of all, we have Emily Vona, and Emily is a nurse practitioner, and she has a business called Arizona Recovery Center. I think some of you have already met her at the Community Impact meeting, so we're very happy to have her as a chamber member. And then we also have a new pharmacy in town called Sunrise Pharmacy, and the pharmacist is Ezekiel, and I'm going to do my best here. Kisa Tilwe. Did I do it? Oh. I practiced for 5 minutes on that. So, and the pharmacy is located across the street from Bash's in the Super Block. So we welcome him. And then, I'm sorry? Albertsons. Sorry, Bash's, Albertsons. A, B. I got confused. And finally, I want to introduce someone who is not a stranger to any of you, but is a new chamber member, and that is my old friend Stan Usinowitz. And Stan actually worked as a writer and photographer for the chamber for a number of years and has recently retired from that. And he loves us so much that he came back in with a membership check. So we're so happy to have him to continue to be involved in the chamber. Just a little bit of personal information. Stan and I have known each other since 1988. So we go way back in the newspaper business. So just a quick and gentle reminder that business makes the city roll. And so these are some of the folks that are going to be helping us do that. So thank you, guys.
Great, thank you. Welcome. Would anyone else like to address the city council during the call to the public? Seeing none, we'll close the call to the public. Moving on to item 6, the consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items from consent agenda to talk about separately?
Mayor,
Yes.
motion?
Yes.
I move we accept the consent agenda as presented. Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 7 is correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. Item 7.1 is the investment report as of June 30th. I believe that was filed for our review. Does anyone have any questions on the investment report? All right. We'll move on to 7.2, announce vacancies on the Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. Ms. Williams?
Mayor and City Council, there are a number of vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Airport Advisory Board, 1 regular pilot member. Board of Adjustment, 3 regular members, 3 alternate members. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 1 regular member. And the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, 1 regular member. Anyone interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website.
Thank you. Item 7.3 is the city manager's report. Mr. Knudsen?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to start off with the manager's report with some of the recent welcome home ceremonies. Mayor Sheehy, you and Vice Mayor Dave Lane welcomed home Sergeant DJ Schul on Saturday, July 20th. DJ completed his 6 years of service in the U.S. Air Force as a radar systems analyst. And DJ is a Lake Havasu City High School graduate and earned his business degree while in the military, so he could return home to Lake Havasu City and help his dad run his business. Councilmember Donna McCoy welcomed home Thomas S. On Saturday, August 3rd. Thomas completed 2 years of service in the U.S. Navy as a submarine nuclear operator. He'll be deployed in December and is awaiting news on the details of his deployment. Welcome home, DJ and Thomas, and thank you for your service. Mayor Sheehy proclaimed July 24th as Schuyler Alexis Perez Day, the month of September, as Celebrate Literacy Month in Lake Havasu City, and presented a key to the city to longtime business owners of the Desert Martini. The 5th annual Mark S. Nexon Veterans Treatment Court Family Day was celebrated by many on July 27th, including Senator Sonny Borelli and former Mayor Mark Nexon, who showed up to join in on the fun. The Family Day is a great event that shows graduates and current participants of the Veterans Court that they have the support of the community. On July 29th, Councilmember McCoy joined the Marine Corps League, VRE English Village LLC, and Havasu Freedom Foundation at sunrise in the English Village to install new flags to honor those who serve. Thank you. As talked about just a little bit ago during the Pledge of Allegiance, on August 13th, the Havasu Community Health Foundation, #YouMatter, and the Havasu Youth Advisory Council held an event for suicide awareness that featured Kevin Hines. He is a Golden Gate Bridge jumper and survivor. Nearly 600 residents in the community joined and attended this event. It was a huge success. Mayor Sheehy presented Kevin Hines with a proclamation proclaiming August 13th as Kevin Hines Day in Lake Havasu City, and directed those in the audience that we should follow Kevin Hines' lead when we come across someone in emotional distress and ask them, "Are you okay? Is there something wrong? And can I help you?" We have learned through Kevin's story that a suicidal person may not be equipped physically and or mentally to ask for help, but that doesn't mean that help isn't wanted or needed. Mayor Sheehy, you gathered community members for the latest Community Resource Coalition meeting. That was just a few days ago on August 15th to further discuss opportunities and gaps in the system for our residents in need of community services. Nearly 800 people attended, all representing various organizations in Lake Havasu City. Attendees introduced themselves, their organizations, shared stories about the services they provide to the community, and relationships were created that will benefit the citizens of Lake Havasu City. And the next coalition meeting is scheduled for December. Our Havasu Youth Advisory Council attended the League of Arizona Cities and Towns at their youth program just last week with members of the council and city staff. This is HIAC's 7th year traveling and participating in the League's youth program, and they are very thankful for the opportunities to showcase Lake Havasu City. This year's youth sessions included a session on Bloom 365 regarding teen dating violence, a presentation on financial literacy, and pitch presentations from each of the Arizona universities. The Youth Council attended a luncheon featuring Governor Doug Ducey and participated in the Showcase of Cities and Towns. And they've expressed how great of a time they had getting to know all of our neighboring cities and towns in Arizona. And finally, a reminder that the next coffee with the mayor and city manager is held on Friday, September 6th at 9 a.m. And next month we'll be meeting at the Mojave County Library here in Lake Havasu City. So come join us to express issues, concerns, or questions. This is an informal come and go setting. So, and for more information, please contact the mayor's office or visit the website. Mayor and council, that concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Knudsen? Just a couple of clarifications real quick for those that might listen to this recorded. It was about 100 people attended the community resource,
Okay.
not 800.
Oh, did I say 800? Oh.
Totally, I was like, no, we have a lot of services, but not that. And then just coffee with the mayor and city manager. Normally it's at 8:30. It'll be 9 o'clock specifically this month because of our host. Doesn't open until 9 a.m. at the library. But thank you, Mr. Knudsen. All right, next item on the agenda is the 7.4, the Lake Havasu City Partnership for Economic Development Annual Update. Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come update you on what we've been doing for the last year. I want to cover just a few projects. I want to touch on the shops at Lake Havasu, which I know a lot of people are very interested in where we're at. I want to talk about Nomadic, the co-working facility that we're developing. That's part of the Vision 2020 process. I do have an update on Agave Business Park, which I know sometimes we forget, and it does have its challenges, but I want to talk about that. And then I want to cover some of the things that we do in the network. And when we talk about the network, that's what we do in people development. And so I want to cover a couple of programs that we do, Creative Comrades, First Friday, and then this winter we're bringing back ASU Startup School, which we did a couple years ago. We did 3 iterations, and it was very successful, but like all things, we gave it a rest, and we've had some demand creeping back in to start that process back up, so we'll be doing that in the winter. So let me start with the shops at Lake Havasu. So a couple different things. As you know, with this opportunity, I won't go in the past, but we'll talk about first Tom and Megan Sanders and Our Pampered Home. We came for rezoning for the omni-channel retailer. You can see it on the map on the right. It's 40,000 square feet. It's building 4,000. It's quite sizable. This was really an expansion and a retention. As you know, Tom and Megan run an Amazon top 50 fulfillment center in town, and they're looking to expand off College Street. We're actually looking into phase 2 of the business park when this opportunity came. It's a $2.5 million investment, and I'm pleased to tell you that you can take a look. This is the omni-channel storefront rendering, but all the demolition plans and construction drawings have been submitted to the city. They are looking to close by the third week of September on the property, which that is, as you can imagine, it seems like it's been a long, exhaustive period, and it is, but when you're talking about developing such a facility, and especially in a retrofit, it's actually been going quite fast. We had to deal with a lot of lot splits and easements, and you can imagine carving out that piece of property for the sale. And so I know we're excited, but I know that Jared Ports and PF Opportunity are even more excited. You know, this undertaking is counter current to trends in the marketplace. As you know, retail is in a massive struggle. And so changing that zoning has turned the tide to some degree, but it doesn't mean that all of a sudden we can open the doors and people are going to fill it. So having a large investment started is certainly going to help that narrative. I want to give you a quick update. We have had a stalling pattern. I know that they had an initial ownership group on a major corporate restaurant chain, and I won't name it. I'm sure a lot of people have the name dancing around in their head. But the original ownership group got all the way through the process, and the very last process, if you're familiar with corporate restaurants, is there is a stage of first right of refusal, meaning that anyone in the corporate territory gets to step up and say, well, we're kind of interested in that, and if they've already have facilities going in the territory, then they get a chance to do due diligence. And that is what happened. So there was an ownership group out of Phoenix, tremendously successful, that stepped in and said that they wanted to look at the market. So that has put a big stall on it. They have now backed off the market. And so now they're being reapproached on the first ownership group that was okayed. And so hopefully we can have this moving forward. But I know I'm just speaking for Jared, I know that they were tremendously disappointed to get all the way through that process and then be told no, go through the second process, and then basically be told, well, okay, we're done. You guys can go forward. And so now they're restarting that process. But hopefully they're back on a new footing to get that going. As you know, they've split it up between employment, entertainment, and retail. It's a huge space. It certainly did not, and will never retain 100% retail. So creating a different mix gives it an opportunity to take advantage of the facility and create the density that we're looking for. We have started a process of creating a new branding cycle for them out there. And it's a collaboration and a partnership. If you are as in tune to development as I am, the pathway for new development really resides in the north side of our town. And so we've started a new branding and partnership out there, the New North, where we're creating basically a business co-location space that will be utilized by people like Chad Nelson with Viewpoint Estates and all the other things that we're looking to put out there. So you'll see collaborations of like with Hangar 24 and trying to create that sense of what it looks like to create an alliance of, let's call them north side neighbors that are coming together on a collective goal. One of the things that space needs is density, density, density. And so the last thing that I would say that Desert Land Group, PED, and PF Opportunity Fund, and I believe that you'll see the very first wave of it late this year or early next year some of the long-term strategies that have been hinted, but talking about creating a hotel site, and also then the even longer term strategy is creating people to actually live in the facility. So that would be in a first wave something like a 40 unit apartment complex. Now there's a lot of entitlements that need to be done, but at the same time creating that density in the space is ultimately going to be the driver that allows 1, 2, or 3 restaurants to serve the north side in that space. And so I think that for the shops at Lake Havasu, it has been a, it has been a very fast walk to get Tom and Megan to where they are at now, but I think the space will finally, for the first time, see a massive capital infusement like it hasn't seen in, let's just call it, a decade. And I think that that's powerful. How do I know? Because I've walked a lot of prospective people into the space. I can tell them every metric that you want to know, that 10% of our town hits that space every day to visit Walmart. But when you walk down an empty canyon of buildings, it sends a message that is hard to overcome. So I really, from my perspective, am absolutely thrilled and encouraged that Tom and Megan have taken this step to invest that much money in the facility. I'm going to move to Nomadic, our co-working facility. So just so you know, PED runs a co-working space right now. We run F106. One of the reasons we started a co-working space before we developed a center is we had to know what we were doing before we started running. You know, were we going to be developing a space that wouldn't be utilized by people in our community? And how would we onboard people? How would we protect people's information? How would people collaborate in the space? We currently have 7 companies in there. We have to have very exclusive private servers. They're competitors against each other in many arenas. They're also collaborators, but understanding that information is paramount. But I want to talk about this facility. This has been what I'll just call as a shortcoming or a failure. This building performa will never see the light of day beyond what I tell you right now. There's a couple problems with it. This facility right here was about a 6-month process. It was designed, it's about 10,228 square feet. We did this in collaboration with Consolidated Construction. And the building performa, and if you want to know what that means, there's a certain metrics behind a building. So for us, the building has to make money, it has to generate income. And that means we have to have a certain amount of components of private office, open desks, spaces, studios, and then we have to have it on a certain footprint. Well, for this building to make sense for us, we had to be in the $205 to $225 a square foot for this to make sense. We never could get the building under $245 a square foot. And so our gap was rather large. And so just so you know the funding behind this, we got $400,000 from the Vision 2020 project. But as you can see, when you start accounting for land, we had an LOI for the land right in front of ASU. And we were looking, as you know, ASU, we're partners on multiple platforms with. So we wanted to increase that partnership. But when you start taking in the land purchase price, the parking lot, the total ask came in at about $3.2 million. which is well above what we need. We're currently, our gap is about $500,000 to $700,000. We currently have $2 million worth of assets for this. And a lot of that has to do with long-term strategic goals. PED has not made a large capital investment since we put the large one into ASU, the campus. And so we need that to come back to a price range that is somewhere in the 2.5 to about 2.6 number, taking in grants and the dollars we have. So at this point, there's a couple options for us to take. We could take this project back to the Catalyst project. And why we could do that, we could put it in a vertical structure above other buildings. We would eliminate parking costs. We'd eliminate land costs. The downtown Catalyst project is incentivized. It creates more critical mass for a developer. So there are some advantages, but I really wanted to take the time to say on this project that not all developments go forward. This was, very hard for us because we were very close. I don't know if you are following construction costs right now, but construction costs are going through the roof. We pulled just about everything out of this. But again, this isn't the type of building where we could just drop 20% off. Because if we drop 20% off of one thing, that's actually a revenue generator in the building pro forma that people are willing to pay for. And so we have to have certain metrics in there to go off. So if we cut off 4 private offices, but people are willing to pay for those private offices, as you can see, the problem gets worse. So at this point, there's bad news. Obviously, we're not building this next to ASU. Good news, the Catalyst project gets a little bit stronger because there's a cash infusion again and a product. And I know that there's been a lot of concern about putting a co-work space on the ground in the Catalyst, and we understand that concern. So it would have to be a second or third floor alternative to make the space go. Next, I want to talk about the Agave Business Park. So we have another LOI for a manufacturer distribution point. It's for 12,000 square feet on pad 1. You don't have to be an engineer to look at pad 1 to realize it's probably the worst design pad you've ever seen. So this is the third person that's coming in. One of the problems that we're having out there is we're having drainage. So there's a little history to the Agave Business Park and how it's developed. It does have massive drainage around the pads. I mean, huge if you've ever been out there. But the lot sizes are very small. So to retain water on the pads within the islands is very troublesome. So the previous LOI fell through for drainage on pad 1. And so we've just started some communications with the city to come to some kind of larger agreement on how to solve the drainage problem. It's not going away. The pads are not going to be utilized if we can't figure out a path forward. So I've been talking with Stu, and I think we're going to have to create a bigger pathway because the previous LOI, they actually got everything they wanted out of the city except for the drainage. And so at that point, I just think that it's time that we really look at an alternative going forward. And then I would also say that we're looking to figure out, Chip is also looking right now for future expansion, asking the same questions about drainage. So I'm sure that there'll be more conversations coming back about that. So the network is for us in rural, um, people is really the driver of what we do. It's if you've lived here for any amount of time, you know that our biggest limitation is people. Our labor pipeline is not what people would expect, but it is what people would expect out of a tourist town. And when I say that, I don't mean that in any sense derogatory. I mean that this is an incredible playground for people, and we absolutely have more people that live here that don't have a job, don't want a job, and don't need a job. But unfortunately, to drive business, employees drive that. And so for us, we don't want to be just in the attraction game. We don't want to be just in the development game. We have to be in the people development game. We have to step into that arena and start creating avenues where we start not only retention programs, but expansion of capacity of people. We need to take the entrepreneurs that we have. We need to give them the tools. We need to take stage 2 companies that have grown here and have got to revenue, and we need to have programs to make them get bigger. And so the network is all about that. So I'm going to talk about just 3 of the 4. So this is the mayor. He's a rock star. He had 800 people there. Okay, he had 80, but I mean, I'm going to stick with 800. Creative Comrades was started by Amy Spitzer, and it has really grown into an incredible space. It has monthly meetups. We call it professional development for the curious and inspired. But not only does it have monthly meetups, but we have comrades on tour. We have workshops in partnership with ASU. We have pop-up shops that are serving different artists. We do have a video series now, and then we have something that's called Parlor Conversations that is coming online soon. And what this is happening is things are starting to evolve. When we first started Creative Comrades a year ago, we had one thing a month, and people would come. We have almost 500 people in the group. And then people are like, well, we want more. Well, we want more development. We want, as anything that's growing. So we've had to create more and deeper experiences. So the workshops are run through ASU to give further entrepreneurial training, or either just further training for artists to create more. And if you're, I think a lot of people get trapped on artists, but when you hear artists, you need to really hear manufacturers and entrepreneurs, because artists have an incredible ability. The old business lesson, how do you take flour, sauce, and cheese that's 70 cents and turn it into a $10 pizza? I mean, it's real commerce for artists to actually make things and manufacture. The better they get, the more they sell. So that's been a really cool program for us, and you can see the partnerships are growing. The people that want to be in the space. State Bank of Arizona has been an incredible financial backer. They're actually proposing a full business series this winter for startups and also for artists to start growing their business in almost like a finance 101. Out of Creative Comrades came First Fridays. This has been in a really cool new product. We do have partners in it. Obviously, it's PED, it's Creative Comrades, and now Go Lake Havasu. There's a couple of really interesting things about this. One of the things that I always like to be involved in is when you take really core and passionate people that want to do something and make a difference in a space that we need to figure out tools and incentivize them. And so that's what we've done. We've created pathways for this leadership team. Who's been to a First Friday here? Okay, so it's just barely got started, but you're talking about a space that's been able to, in the end of last year, get about 2,000 people down on the street. That is a really huge start. And so we've taken their first success and we've put some money into it. We've gained some partnerships, which will keep growing. And we're looking to grow that this year. And so this, we're building a First Friday lot headquarters. It's right next to Small Cakes. When you look at it right now, that picture literally scares the death out of me because we're only 2 weeks away. That doesn't look done to me. So that's a bit scary, but we're very excited about, and I won't go into what the finished product will look like, but I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what that space turns out to be. And then I want to just talk a little bit about why economic development is interested in First Fridays. So one, it's a lot like F-106. You need to start driving the culture and creating demand before you see investment. And the biggest project out of the Vision 2020 is the Downtown Catalyst Project. And so right now you're looking at a public investment of anywhere from $2.5 to $3 million. Well, we need to be able to show long before we get into an agreement like that, that we have demand, we have interest, we have partners, and we have people willing to participate in the downtown and grow it at a bigger scale. Number two, something called nighttime economy. I did a parking study for downtown in 2007. The number one hour for parking is noon to 1, and the parking is filled about 70%. When you hit 5 o'clock, it is down to 20%. By the time you hit the 6 to 7 hour, it was under 10% capacity. And that probably doesn't surprise you when you think about how quickly that drains out. But when you think about how many people come here, and they love our lake, they love our place, but are they treated with places and different opportunities that stay open till 9, 10 o'clock at night? And then finally, it's something that's called third space. We are an incredible town that does really well in events. So that's a great thing. If people say, we're doing this event, it's cars, it's beer, it's down here, it's Saturday, people show up and they love it. But what we don't do well is third space. And what third space is, first space and second place, home and work. But where's the cultural hub? So when you live in a more metro area, instead of going to an A and B place, like let's go to one restaurant and then we go home. What we want to create, what we think a downtown is, you go downtown before you know what you're going to do. You get out of the car, and then what restaurant is open, what place is open, and you walk around. Now, we all travel to different places, and we know that that exists, where people are going, they don't have a particular plan in place, they don't know how long they're going to stay. If everything's working well with the grandkids and they don't have homework that night, someone says, let's go get ice cream after dinner, and they extend it by 45 minutes. Why? Because there's an opportunity. And so third space is about creating culture that rolls around. So when you think about First Fridays and the way it works, it's not about creating an event space. We already do that really well. It's about creating portals for people to walk in and around downtown and explore. That's why you'll never see concentration of art in one place. You'll never see bands all in one place. They're staggered around because people are supposed to be moving in and around the downtown space. So I hope you guys have a lot of questions. I seem to be going right through this. And then finally, I want to talk about Startup School. So Startup School, like I said a couple years ago, we did Startup School, which seemed like about 8 months in a row. And it was wildly successful. I think we had almost I think it was 53 people go through startup school in the 3 iterations. And then we took a break. We've come back with new curriculum, and the driving force behind startup school is we have people, and we service this all the time. I have an idea, I want to start a business, and they want to start the process. And we help them, and that's fine. But it's not as good as doing it in a collaborative space, and I'm going to tell you why. The old adage of starting a business is kind of like an old gym membership. Put on some gym shop, go to the gym and figure it out. That's how starting a business was. Go learn everything on your own, go to your garage, start, figure it out on your own, knock your head against the wall. The new way of starting a business is this looks like a perfect startup school. If every single person was starting up a business and we were doing it together, you would understand, how do I get a tax ID? I just did it. Here, it's super simple. How do I sell products online? Oh, we actually do that as a company. You start to understand your value proposition. You start to learn how to scale. You learn to take an idea to revenue or not. You know, some of the best iterations are taking an idea all the way through to say, we can make revenue, but ultimately we're just going to waste a ton of time to break even, right? Like that's something you want to know before you put a lot of money up. And so doing it in a group, the best way I can explain it is the first week we'll say, all right, who's got a business idea? And someone, I don't want to tell anyone my idea, they're going to steal it. And then someone says, okay, I'm trying to start a roller skating rink, right? So we go through the whole process, and what they realize is 15 minutes later, they literally had 20 entrepreneurs work on their business model on a whiteboard, and all of a sudden they're like, wow, I had never thought about that. That's a good idea. I need to get in that partnership. I need to look at that model. How would I do that? Would I extend with this partner? And now all of a sudden the next time we ask, everyone wants to work on their business. But ultimately, collecting ideas and creating entrepreneurs in a room always gets that positive feedback loop, which really avoids major mistakes and also gets you to major opportunities, getting you to your ultimate value proposition. So we're really excited to start that again. It's going to come out in a 6-week course again, and that'll be run this winter. And with that, I will stop just, I guess, lecturing. And do you have any questions for me?
Thank you for the update. Are there any questions from members of the council? Yes, Councilmember Lynn.
James, we were just recently at a Tri-City Council meeting, and they had their the new Mojave County PED director, Tammy was there, and she was giving us some information on some new leads that were coming in the county. So have we had any like interested parties outside of in Havasu?
Yeah, so we get all those leads too that come out of the ACA. One of the things that Tammy has done that I think is really positive is she puts through all the leads, even if we don't meet the requirements, which I would say that 90% of all leads that come out of the state, probably Mojave County doesn't meet the requirement. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't understand what's happening, what's available, what types of things people are looking for. And so, yes. And I would say that we probably are dealing with, I would say on an average of 3 people a month that are outside of our town that are looking to invest. Now, so when you're doing that, you're in site selection, you're in logistics of getting stuff back out, you're into people, and due diligence is, you know, we walk all the way through that. And quite honestly, most of those are coming through people that have affiliations. And even people that, I'll put it this way, we have people that have second homes here for 20 years that have been trying to move a business here for 5 years. And every time you get through the metrics, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, that's in all reality, there's 2 big drivers. I didn't put it on the slides, but it's something that collectively as a community, we have to start thinking about. we've been thinking about people for 10 years, and we're doing a lot of things, but we have to be better. I don't know how to explain that. A lot of it is just a talent gap. It's a sheer demographic thing that's happening to every city. It's not Lake Havasu, it's not Mojave County, it's Seattle, it's Phoenix, it's everywhere. Baby boomers are leaving the market. X generation is down, and we're not going to fill the people void until we get the millennials up. That's just a sheer honest truth. The state of Arizona is missing 1.1 million people. If we literally could export them in today, they would be hired. But they don't exist, right? Like there's a gap in there. So there's that. And then there's two that I know that you're concerned about, but I'm becoming more increasingly concerned every day. We don't have workforce housing. I mean, when I talk about people shut down the engine because there's no oxygen, for even people that they can pay their way into the system, I'll go back to the example of Consolidated Construction to build the senior center. It took them 3 weeks to find a place for the project manager to live, and at one point they were thinking about going to Kingman. I mean, that's an $18 million project, and we can't find a place for someone to live. And it gets worse when you go down the ladder. And and I know you guys understand that there's a certain level of pay, that's hard. If you go down to, let's just say, $11 to $15 an hour, it's troubling. So I know that we've done some work with the Realtors Association trying to get grants, trying to take a survey. We already know really what we have, but I think we're going to have to get aggressive on how we figure out that problem, because right now we in very many ways resemble a ski town, right? Like we just heard about vacation rentals, but when the price of a home is $3 million in Breckenridge and it can be rented out at $7,000 a week nonstop, who's there to pour the beer? And where do they live? And it's happening to us on a smaller scale, and I know a lot of people in here are experiencing that. And so that's a critical problem that we're facing.
Okay, can I ask one more question? Speaking on the affordable housing, have you had any developers approach the PD on possible affordable housing? Because I know they're doing some work both in Bullhead and Kingman.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what is holding them back coming here? Is it the actual finding the land?
So yeah, there's a couple of big things that hurt us. Land prices in our town are outrageous, and I always like to talk in metaphors. But literally, if you're talking about commercial buildings, if you're talking about commercial land, you can buy at the same rate in Buckeye. Buckeye is 30 minutes away from a couple million people. We really have the characteristics of that tourist town. And what I mean by that is, think about classic muscle cars, a Mustang, a Camaro, a Corvette. When they came off the showroom, everyone went, this is worth something. I'm never getting rid of it. And they put it in the garage. And we have all of them around today. That's how every time people have come here, they've spec'd every piece of dirt that's gone around. And it's generally on 4th, 5th generation turning around profits on land. That drives away expediency of land development, because that's really the cost that you have to go. If you think about our performa, right? We're literally on a caveat that the land cost really drove that thing away from being developed or not developed. And so in large scale, we don't have large tracts of land, right? We're kind of buffered in. And the tracts that we do have don't build scales of economy fast enough to do it. Now, hopefully, going towards the 40, we're starting to see a little loosening of that concept that people can live beyond that, which I know for people that live in our community, that sounds absolutely crazy. Like, I don't even want to drive to Walmart. But if you think about all the people that move here and you tell them it's 20 minutes to the center of town, they're like, I drove 47 minutes and I lived in Irvine, like that doesn't surprise them. So we need to break open that to get that scale of economy.
Councilmember McCoy?
Yes, just a couple of questions I have. When you talked about the ASU Startup School, how many actual, of the 50-some people that were in that, how many businesses actually started?
Yeah, so.
How many are out
Yeah.
working and?
Yeah, we have about 5 right
Five,
now that
okay.
are functioning, that are revenue, that are adding people.
Okay,
And I would say that we would like that higher.
Sure.
We would want that more at 20%, and it's hovering at about 10%. But in all reality, that's where it's at.
okay. And like everything that you brought forward is truly amazing, and we understand, got to get people here that want to work. We have to house the people that want to work. We want to bring businesses here, and there's always the, reason why they can't come here. But I just wonder, when you developed, and I don't know what the name of this project was, but I know when we get architectures and designs, we're talking a ton of money. What was spent on this that you said is never going to come?
So we spent about $29,000 on that.
Okay. I'm asking
So,
for our
yeah,
taxpayers.
just to be
What are
clear,
we-
so we're like startup people. I
Right.
mean, we run the PED like entrepreneurs, like we do everything ourselves. When you think about, we've had 2 iterations of the Catalyst project. The full $1 million is still there. We knew that when that project goes ahead, that the money that the community won needed to be spent on the project.
Right.
So we do everything very bare bones. We don't just hire consultants and say, bring us back something and go, okay, we can't afford it.
I think it's really important that our taxpayers out here know,
Yeah.
because all of these things sound incredible. And when they come here and they hear us, we've got a project for this and a project for this, and how much it's going to cost us to plan it and set it up. And we're talking a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I just think that they probably, all these great ideas that we all want
Yeah.
to come true,
Right.
they kind of need to know what's happening with their dollars.
Oh, and I mean, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, if you think about the tenant, we're a $500,000 organization. We have 2 people, and the metric that we're looking at is trying to create an investment for entrepreneurs that is $2.7 million. That's a lot of money. We've also been great stewards. We've also made great deals. We've done a lot of things like that that have helped us out. But in reality, the Vision 2020 process gave us $400,000, and we're trying to maximize that. And we're also very careful of this. One of the things, and this is, I guess, a long answer, but I think you should know this, we certainly could go build a $2 million facility right now. It'd be really cool, and everyone could come in. But what happens if it's filled the first day we open it? That's troubling to me. Like, are we just building for, capacity of today, or are we trying to create an expansion? So there's a little bit of that we want to be cognizant about too, because it's an investment. We don't want to just open it, fill it, and be like, okay, that's done. And so it's a fine line on that.
Yeah, I think we would all love to have 200 businesses come here and want to get started with developing whatever their business is. But again, everything that you've brought forward is wonderful. And I think that our citizens that are paying the taxes just want to know what their money is absolutely accomplishing. And that's why I ask those questions.
Thank you. James, can you talk a little bit about the recruitment strategy? A lot of residents talk to us about recruitment and what the city's doing, and I didn't hear any in this report. So could you tell us a little bit about what you're doing on the recruitment side?
Right. So, I mean, obviously we don't put a lot of time in recruitment. We have partners through the ACA. We also go in bigger regionalism because it makes more sense. So we're aligned with Mojave County Economic Development. But I'll be honest, from our point of view, we follow leads of people and we reach out, but if we do not participate in what I'll refer to as old economic development, where we run print ads, we're in LA with consultants, we're for a couple of reasons, we did that for a long time and it didn't pan out. I mean, we spent a lot of money in places, and we just can't compete on that level for talent and people. And so for us, it's about utilization of resources. And the quickest story is in 2009, when the crash happened, the global reset, Gary Kellogg and myself pulled every ad we had. We backtracked consultants out of LA. We stopped taking trips, and we put all that money into a fund. And basically, the stock market was 6,700. I mean, everyone was waiting. Well, how far is this going to go down? I mean, I know I wasn't buying a new shirt, and no one was investing at that point. So let's just hold on. But we started taking that money and we started investing it in local companies that were looking to do, well, I need an engineer to do an investment because I'm looking about expanding, but I'm not going to spend $6,000 right now until I can get to the end. We'd step in and say, all right, well, I'll do the due diligence. I'll get the engineer, we'll get the costs, and then we found more job expansion by utilizing our skill sets and dollars into creating opportunity for local people. So I know we've talked about this before. You know, I think there's some opportunity to get back out there in some small manufacturing associations, but I think that it has to be extremely strategic. And I know that so many economic development organizations put out money and they bring you reports and they tell you where we're at and where, you know, but in reality, I guess it's the old adage, if I told anyone in this room, if you had 3 businesses and I could show you on a piece of paper that if you moved to Idaho, you would save $270,000 a year, would you move? Most people are like, no. And so there's either a strategic overlay of being in a region for purpose, or there's accessing talent and location. And so we need to be right on those parameters of driving to have some amount of success.
Do any other members of the council have any questions? Yes, Councilmember Lynn, and then Dolan.
Sorry. Speaking on the Downtown Catalyst project, we saw plans quite a few months ago on that, and I'm just curious, have there been any new interested investors, like financially, like investors that have looked into that, or are we still kind of at a standstill?
So 2 weeks ago, we just met again with the investor, and one of the things that I said is, the city has $3.1 million in a CIP fund for this. But it's my opinion that if we can't bring a proposal forward before the next time that goes around, there's not going to be $3.1 million in there. And those were my words to the investors. And I think it's a hugely incentivized deal, but it's also for some of the scales that we're looking for, it's hard. And I think the mayor can speak to this. You know, one adage, you know, you're talking about 9,000 square foot restaurant. It's a big demand. You know, we have a phenomenal market for restaurants and we do really well. But when we're starting to talk about that, you're talking about real population numbers, and you're talking about the people that have the feasibility to do that are generally looking to do their 8th thing in a major metro, because they know the metrics of what they're getting into, and it sounds terrible, but doing your 3rd place in Gilbert is a stronger proposition than doing your 1st place in Lake Havasu. With that said, we do have a full list of interests, including now, if you think about nomadic, so that changes a building performa for someone. So the next step is to, not to go into too much detail, but we're writing up a very loose development agreement that would start marching down the road, that we need to start spending a little bit of money to start understanding some civil and to start working that partnership between the public and private. But there's some things that we've come across that are fundamental to the deal, right? What the private sector has to do, how much they're buying it for, what's the parking requirement, how much more they're spending. But now we have to start getting into some real measurables, which all go back to public investment, private investment, how much restaurant, retail, on the ground floor, the things the city wants, the thing that the community wants, all the parameters of the driver. And if you think about in the current iteration that you've seen, even stacking the second floor, you're talking about a $7 million building. So yes, we have an incredible incentive of $1 million in there to work with developers, but it's not a get all the way home card. So we need to align it with the right partners. But as we've expressed to the current individual who is absolutely interested, that if we don't start making progress, I ultimately believe that, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I just sensed it last time we went through the CIP that, there's fatigue on the project. Either we're going to get it done or you guys are going to have $1 million to make a better park, and I would hate to see that happen because it really doesn't do the catalyst aspect of it, and I think it's a shortcoming, but also there has to be that balancing act between the public investment and then what the private investment's willing to do.
Sorry, I got to ask you questions. We don't get to see you a lot. So can you give me a little bit of update on your involvement with the Environmental Learning Center? And also the same question, do you have any investors that are looking at investing in that?
So I'm happy to report I'm not involved in the eco-environmental, and only, I would be happy to be involved in what it takes to create a development and the metrics of where people have to get comfortable, whether they're investors or not. But that's a completely different investment model. And so I'm not actively pursuing drivers of that space. That's really what I believe is a government to government within that space. But so that's all I can add to that. Yeah, but I will say it's incredibly difficult. Like I will tell you, I've had conversations with all kinds of people in our town, and they say, well, you have $1 million, it should be done. And I'm thinking, that's a $9 million project. So, when you really start to think about $1 million, just the construction drawing plans on that, almost $600,000. So in reality, that's one of the reasons we've really taken that very startup development thing where we're not spending money until other people are committed. And we've created enough modeling and enough information that people are interested, but we don't want to spend money on assets. When owners get involved, they're going to want to have their own say, right? And so we want to be in concordance with what the person that's going to put up the investment, the stakeholder, and how that matches with the public side, the city. And that's the union we're trying to do. And it's not easy, but we think we have the tools to do it.
All right, Councilmember Dolan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I just want to thank you for your update. Definitely gives us a great idea of what the PED is doing. I guess as a business owner myself, it's really hard to kind of get a feeling of, these are all great things, but are we able to see a P&L or a balance sheet to kind of see, how the PED does spend its money with all these projects? Because it's kind of hard to see without the big picture part. Is that something we can?
Yeah, it's all public.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that
and so are our meetings, by the way. Anyone can attend.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Right. Vice Mayor Lane?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment, because James and I actually talk quite often now. This is going to be a regular thing that happens here. James is going to be coming more often to our council meetings and giving us an update on what's going on. But I also want to recognize Amy, his coworker over at the PED. She's very creative and really pushes the First Fridays and the Creative Comrades. So thank you for being here, Amy, and supporting James. And we look forward to your reports as we go on. And that's something that we can do for Councilmember Dolan, is always bring in the balance sheets where we're actually spending our money, and we actually invest the money. James has made some very good investments. So the money that we have come in isn't just sitting there. It's making money, and some of the money that is spent on some of these drawings, there's actually revenue that's coming in and interest that's being made on the money that's in the accounts.
Excellent. And for those watching at home and in the audience, Vice Mayor Lane is our council liaison on the board for the Partnership for Economic Development. All right, are there any other questions before we move on to our regular agenda? All right, thank you, Mr. Gray. We appreciate the update.
You bet.
All right, now we'll move on to item 8, which is our public hearings. We'll start with 8.1, adopt resolution number 19-3340, appointing a regular member to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, the city received one application requesting consideration for reappointment as a regular member on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. This appointment is necessary to fill an expired term of a regular member position, the term ending June 30th, 2022. Mr. Scott Welty's application was provided to you in the packet, and he is also here tonight to answer any questions, make a brief presentation to the council.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Welty, if you would like to make your way to the podium.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I've served on the Parks and Rec Board for 6 years prior to this. I've enjoyed my involvement with the projects that we've had. I've actually realized how much Parks and Rec plays in the community, how important it is, and had some good projects come past that we've seen completion, and some projects that haven't. I'd like to stay on and with your blessing, another term, and continue working with the Parks and Rec Board. It's been a pleasure, up to this point.
Excellent. Do any members of the council have any questions for Mr. Welty? No? All right, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Yes.
I move to adopt resolution number 19-3340, reappointing Scott Welty as a regular member to the Lake Havasu City Parks and Recreation Advisory Board with a term ending June 30th, 2022.
Second?
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember Lynn. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Welty, for volunteering. We appreciate it. All right, moving on to item 8.2, introduce ordinance number 19-1220, amending City Code Section 2.12.090, elections, scheduling regarding primary election date. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, during the recent legislative session, Senate Bill 1154 was passed into law, moving the primary election date from the 10th Tuesday prior to the general election to the first Tuesday in August. It also changed the candidate nomination period, what was 90 to 120 days, now to 150 days. Under Senate Bill 1154, the new primary election date is August 4th, 2020, and the general effective date of this is today, August 27th. Staff recommends introduction of this ordinance. Happy to answer any questions.
Do any members of the council have any questions for Ms. Williams? No? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, motion?
Yes.
I move to introduce ordinance number 19-1220, amending City Code Section 2.12.090, election scheduling.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember McCoy and a second from Vice Mayor Lane. Is there any further discussion? All right, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 8.3, approve professional services agreement with EUSI for professional utility public works management consulting and support services to evaluate the water and wastewater divisions. Mr. Frosley?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council, and good evening. The first item I have for you tonight is a professional services agreement with a firm named EUSI. They are professional water and wastewater utility operators. You may have recognized the name. They have worked for us in the past, back in 2018, when we experienced some large and expensive sanitary sewer overflows due to some force main pipe failures and some lift station issues. We asked these guys to come in, take a look at some of our equipment, talk to the staff. They provided an initial report, they called it, in May of 2018 with some general recommendations, which we've implemented some of those. The idea here is to build on that information collected last year. This is a far more comprehensive effort than the first one. For one, it's a full 6-month effort. The contract duration is 6 months. They have a much larger proposed group to come and work. They've got a professional engineer. They've got 3 certified operators. They've got a financial one financial person and a couple more utility management specialists or experts. So the plan is for this group to come in and spend time with our staff, at least 1 or 2 days per week for the duration of that 6 months, looking at our equipment, following the staff around, job shadow, if you will. I've asked them for specific recommendations in the final report to include things like organizational structure, staffing level recommendations. We're currently down 4 key positions in wastewater, including the division manager, a utility supervisor, and 2 plant operators that we recently lost. On the water side, we're still down a division manager, so that's a very key position as well. In addition to those recommendations, I'm looking for some written policies and procedures that would support our asset management system. We've got a significant monetary and time investment in our asset management. And then lastly, some assistance with the positional analysis to make sure we get our staff described properly and where they should be with regards to pay. So as I mentioned, it's a 6-month effort. The total cost is $98,544, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do any members of the council have any questions for Mr. Frosley?
Quick question.
Yes.
When would this start?
He's ready to start immediately. We're talking September 1st.
And it's 6 months?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Groh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I inquire as to the level of certification of the operator? Can you be, I believe you said there are 3 certified operators on this individual staff, or the organization staff?
Sure.
Can you kind of enlighten me as to what we're talking about there?
The 2 that I'm familiar with are grade 4 certification holders in both water and wastewater. That's the highest certification available with ADEQ.
Okay, so we have 2 grade 4s who are going to be doing the analysis.
I'm assuming the 3rd is also grade 4, but I don't know that for a fact.
Okay, and can you unpack the electrical instrument and control specialist position a little bit and give me a sense of what it is in terms of our controls where we may be lacking? What are we kind of trying to look at there?
Well, we have on staff a controls person. The grade 4 operators would be able to analyze our SCADA system, our motor controls, and our PLCs, and how all of our facilities talk to each other. but there isn't a specific SCADA guy listed within this firm.
Can you run that by me again? There isn't a specific SCADA. I didn't hear that last week.
We didn't list issues with our SCADA system. SCADA, you know what SCADA is. SCADA is the software that talks to all of our lift stations and our pumps and our plants. That's how we operate them remotely. Well, you're asking about pumps and motor controls.
Any issues, yeah.
We don't have issues. So it's not necessarily part of this study, if you will.
Yeah, Mr. Freisler, I think Mr. Groh might be talking about the fee schedule. It specifically outlines different fee schedule for the different folks. And is that where your question's coming from, Mr. Groh?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, it is outlined on the Exhibit B in the fee schedule. Yes. And so that raised the question in my mind, did we have any issues with some of our SCADA systems? I wouldn't have been aware of that. So I think we have done some pretty significant investments over the years and making sure that we're technologically up to date. Okay, so I'm assuming the project consultant and the senior process and project consultants are going to be working in terms of helping to lay out some of the policy and procedural, yes. I guess, updates.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. This is something that I'm looking for help with. This, since I've been placed in this role, it's a rather large organization, and it's one I'd like to make an impact on immediately. And to do that, I need help with people who also do this for a living to go in and do this analysis and provide me with recommendations that I can implement on a shorter time frame.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Do you have any sense of what kind of process indicators or what kind of process, technically speaking, what they would be looking at using? Just curious.
Well,
it's kind of a process management question.
We've got we've got 3 treatment plants, and we've got 2 different types of treatment process. We've got a membrane treatment plant and 2 Schreiber treatment plants. The folks that are coming in to analyze those processes are well versed. They work as operators for other cities all throughout Arizona and California. So and they all work the same in all the different. It's a patented process. What we're looking at is the method of operation. Are we operating the chemical feed at the proper levels? Are we properly staffed? Do we need people out making rounds at night, or do we change the way we operate our SCADA system so we take laptops home instead? It doesn't feel like I'm capturing your question, but
yeah, I think, Mr. Groth, the whole idea of where your question is coming from my understanding, is that'll tell, going through this process, we'll be able to answer your questions. So they're going to look at the entire process as a whole and give recommendations based on what processes we're doing and what might be best practices.
Correct.
I don't know if that clarifies it. Or
we're looking for efficiencies, trying to identify ways to operate our utility better, maybe less expensive, maybe have less breaks as a result of implementing proactive maintenance rather than reactive maintenance.
Okay, it doesn't exactly answer my question, but I do understand where he's coming from. I was thinking about it from a slightly different perspective. I think that clarity has been brought to the table by both yourself and by the mayor's addition. I don't know that I have any other particular questions, but I would kind of sort of get your sense about this. You've been asked to take on a lot in kind of overseeing this. And I don't know quite how to describe it, but I think maybe the best way I can say it is probably a very big challenge that would be facing anybody who would be put into the position that you've been put into. And it's not necessarily anybody's fault, it's just a normal change, if you will. that's happened with personnel and some key personnel. So we have, as a municipality, made some pretty significant investments in our infrastructure, in our SCADA systems, in the software pieces that operate that. I was looking at, process controls and different process improvement kind of methodologies. I'm sure that they use whatever the leading edge is in municipalities. But I just kind of wanted to give you, the opportunity to kind of explain a little bit of some of these pieces. And
as a result of whatever recommendations come into place, I don't anticipate changing any equipment out or methods of treating wastewater or treating water. Those are established in place. What we're looking at is more efficient ways to operate our existing systems. These are operators.
I would only point out that from the standpoint of moving into the new data system that we have, one of the most important pieces in there is going to be management of our existing assets. Asset management is a key part of a large corporation, which the city actually is. And so I want to commend you for bringing this forward. I know it takes a little bit of courage to say, hey, I need to do some of this work. People think that this stuff all magically happens. It doesn't. It's a lot of work. And the best time to do it is when you're implementing new data systems so that you wind up having the right processes and procedures in place and fully capture the asset management piece that will actually generate a lot of savings to the city in the long run. So it may seem like a large investment in the front end, but actually it pays for itself many times over by capturing the efficiencies up front. And so I just wanted to commend you for your part in bringing this forward.
Do any other members of the council have any questions for Mr. Frosley? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Vice
Motion?
Mayor Lane? Yes.
I move to approve the professional services agreement with EUSI.
Mayor, second.
We have a motion from Vice
Second.
Mayor Lane and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further discussion? Did you guys both get to the microphone at the same time? I couldn't tell. All right. All right. I think no other further questions. We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Item 8.4 is award agreement for professional services for the Island Wastewater Treatment Plant Flow Equalization Basin replacement to Carrillo. Are you doing that, Mr. Frosley?
I am.
Okay. If you can turn on the mic, thank you.
Jason is actually attending a water conference today with some of our operations guys, so I'm going to fill in for him on the next two items. Yes, you're correct, Mr. Mayor. This is the Island Treatment Plant Flow Equalization Basin Replacement Project. And it was actually a project that was included as something we should do in the original EUSI contract from last year. It got put into the capital improvement program, which council approved just a few months ago. So this is an implementation of a project in our CIP that's already been approved. This is the Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. If you look over here on the far right, this is McCullough Boulevard, Island Baseball Field, football field. That is the existing flow equalization basin. The details that, or the history that I've been able to compile on that is as far back as 2002, we were having some issues with one of the valves that controlled the flow into the EQ basin. In 2005, somebody made the decision to, rather than replace it, which was quite expensive, originally installed in the early 80s, we were going to bypass it and take the flow equalization basin out of service, and that happened in 2005, and it hasn't been in service since. In 2005, our flows to that treatment plant were quite low, so it was manageable to not have an EQ basin. Today, our flows are significantly higher, and what happens is we end up receiving what we call slug flows, which is like for 1 hour of the day, we get a high level of flows in there that's unmetered. and then other parts of the day we get very low flows, and that doesn't work for a treatment plant. For a treatment plant to work, you have to have very steady, consistent flow through the treatment process. So we need to put this EQ basin back in service, or really build a new one. This is the design contract for that. It basically works as almost like a storage pond or a storage tank for wastewater. So you can store it during the high flows and meter it out consistently during the low flow times. The duration for this contract is 10 months. It's $284,746. The guys down at the wastewater treatment plant are excited to get this done. The slug flows result in violations to our permit at times, which have to be recorded with the state. We violate with high nitrates and high turbidity and some other stuff we don't need to speak about tonight. So we're all excited to get this back into service, including myself. It's a much needed project.
Great, thank you. Do any members of council have any questions for Mr. Frosley? Councilmember Grove?
Surprise. You were talking about some of the issues that we have with the slug flows, turbidity, and high nitrate levels. The $284,746, does that get us to the point where we actually have this whole thing back in service?
No, it gets us to the point where we can advertise construction bids.
That's what I thought. I thought that seemed optimistic. Yeah. Now, in getting the equalization basin back to the point where we can actually offer a construction contract on that, do you know, are we planning on putting it in the same spot where the current one that's out of service is?
Yes, all the inflow, that's not a huge site. It's in a neighborhood, so that will be demolished, and that same site will be utilized for the new EQ basin.
Thanks, and I recognize that, but I also recognize, as everybody else does, we've had a lot of building out on the island, and so the volumes obviously have increased a lot for that plant. Do you have a sense of, if we get the EQ basin back up, what's your sense on the timeline when we might be able to, this is a 10-month contract to get it ready to bid?
The money to construct it, I don't even believe is in this month's budget. It's in next year's budget. So the earliest we could go would be July, but 10 months from September is July. Yeah, about then. So as soon as hopefully if everything goes right, as soon as the next year's fiscal budget is approved, we can go to bid on that.
Okay. Does anybody else have questions?
Hey, that's my job. Do anyone else have any questions for Mr. Frosley? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mayor,
Councilmember Koch?
motion?
Yes.
I move to award the agreement for professional services for the Island Wastewater Treatment Plant Flow Equalization Basin to Corello.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilmember Koch and a second from Councilmember Dolan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Great, thank you. All right, our final public hearing is item 8.5, award agreement for professional services for the 2019 water storage tank replacement and tank expansion to Atkins. Mr. Frosley.
Thank you. Once again, this is a project that is part of our annual maintenance program for the water side of things. There's 2 tanks involved in this contract. It's a professional service contract for design. And the 2 that are being replaced this year are a result of the very comprehensive inspection that we did late 2017, early 2018. The 2 tanks, the first one is located up on Havasu Boulevard, directly across the street from Havasu Elementary School. Some of the issues we had with that is we had significant problems with the roof. As a matter of fact, during the inspections last year, when they were in sandblasting, the tank actually started falling apart, and we had to pull the guys out of there. It was unsafe. So that tank's been out of service for almost a year right now. So that became a priority for this year's CIP. The water master plan that was recently completed recommended increasing that tank size to help with some fire flows in the neighborhood to meet our own requirements. So that this tank will be fully reconstructed to 1.5 million gallons. It was originally built in 1976. So we're anxious to get that one back online. It stresses our system to not have that 1 million gallon tank out there in operation right now, and it's been out of operation for a year. The next tank is up on Yucca Drive. Looks like it's just down the hill from Kiowa Boulevard. This one's 48 years old. 15 years ago, I'm told we did some repairs to the floor that have lasted 15 years, but I'm told it's pretty much gone right now. So this, it's the smaller tank here that's going to get replaced. Right here. It's 250,000 gallons, 0.25 MGD, and that's going to be taken down, and we're going to place this new tank over here. We'll leave that one in operation as long as we can while we build a new tank and with a floor that will hold water. So for these two tanks, it's going to take 8 months to design and produce these construction documents. Total price is $235,267.60.
Thank you. Do any members of council have any questions for Mr. Frosley?
I didn't want to disappoint, Mr. Mayor. We're going to do a life cycle cost analysis on this, or we're going to have them do it if we approve this tonight. They're going to do the LCC for both these tanks, I assume. And the corrosivity study is of particular interest because, you know, for example, when we redid the floor, 15 years ago, obviously we have some problems. And
yes, the floor was, you know, fell victim to our corrosive soils, and also the footing was falling on one side, so the tank it was out of level as well. Right now, the life cycle cost analysis has already been done, which led us to the decision to recommend to you to rebuild the tanks rather than try to rehab them.
And since you're an engineer, I know that you like a lot of the details, in particular the important ones, like, for example, what kind of substrate do I have underneath the tank that's going to hold X number of pounds of water, or tons, I should say. Yes. It's going to be a massive number. But you're doing 4 core samples, you're doing a couple 50-footers, a couple 60-footers?
Yeah, 210, 220, whatever it takes. Yes, we do in-depth investigation. Our new recently adopted standard for new builds or replacement is a concrete footing, soil cement around the ring, welded steel tank that should last us 100 years before if it's well maintained, it'll be in place for at least 100 years.
And if it's well ventilated, because we've had some ventilation challenges, some of the other tanks. Do you have, I mean, it's kind of a different question, but it's a good question anyways. Do you have a sense of how many tanks, after we get done with this, that we may have that have?
Oh, well, we have, I believe, 13 booster station sites. Most of them have 2 tanks. I believe this is the last year of evaluation, and we'll have one more year. It's kind of funny. I asked Jason to be prepared to answer this exact question, but I don't have the exact answer for you. I apologize. But Atkins is in their 5th year of their 5-year contract, and they've evaluated all the tanks and designed all the tanks up till this one. So there's 26 tanks roughly in town. So if we only do 1 or 2 a year, by the time we're done with the last tank, we may have some maintenance issues on the first one we did 5 years ago.
Our handy asset management software will tell us we are now due to begin starting the entire cycle over again, and so goes the business of running a municipality.
Yes, we spent 10 years putting a sewer system in, and accidentally may have neglected the water side a little bit. There wasn't any money, you know, to do what we should, so we kept Band-Aids on everything, and then once the sewer project got done, we focused on this tank rehabilitation, so we'll catch up.
Again, if I may, thank you for your attention to detail and just following up on all this, and to our city manager as well for your strong interest in our water infrastructure. Without water, nothing else matters.
Do any other members of the council have any questions for Mr. Frosley? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address the city council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Dolan?
Motion?
Yes.
I move to award the agreement for professional services for the 2019 water storage tank replacement and tank expansion to Atkins.
Second?
We have a motion from Councilmember Dolan and a second from Councilmember McCoy. Is there any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 9 on the agenda is current events. Do any members of the council have any council committee reports? Seeing none, we'll move to item 10, which is our final call to the public. Would anyone like to address the city council at the call to the public? Seeing none, we'll close the call to the public. Future meetings, our next meeting is Tuesday, September 10th, 2019 at 6 p.m. It's a regular meeting. And then on Tuesday, September 24th, 2019 at 6 p.m., we have another regular meeting. Item 12, are there any future discussion items? No? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, we have a motion and a second. Have a great evening. Thank you.